Prosecutors say that his third wife was murdered, his fourth wife disappeared. And now one of Drew Peterson's former police partners is telling Fox Chicago News how the ongoing Peterson saga nearly destroyed his life. Tonight in our special report, Mark Saxenmeyer with a story about stress, secrets, and suicide.
You gotta cling to that somehow.
She was scared for her life.
On the very day Stacy Peterson disappeared,
I'm to cry right now.
when a firestorm of outrage and finger-pointing erupted in suburban Bolingbrook,
Guess I'm a big story.
Sergeant Drew Peterson's former patrol partner,
We worked midnights together.
34-year-old Chris Prochut,
It was just a buddy.
had his very first inkling.
There's potential to put me away in prison for this.
Just wasn't discussed.
His life, as he knew it, was also over.
I was feeling the pressure that they don't get this. This is going to be huge.
This is the biggest story I've ever seen in my life, ever.
Chris Prochut had an acclaimed career as a Bolingbrook cop,
Not only does it prevent crime,
a meteoric rise through the ranks to commander by his early 30s.
Well, faithfully discharge my duties.
faithfully discharge my duties.
He was the public face of the department,
Began receiving reports of wind damage. The determination of fault. We had to set up a perimeter.
a respected and admired family man.
Daddy was a rock star in the house. Chase would be like, Daddy's on TV again.
How many Petersons does it take to change a light bulb?
But the tawdry Peterson saga quickly began to sap Chris Prochut of his strength, his energy, and his confidence.
We got emails from all over the world, sick emails. I'm a murderer. Can I get a job in your town? I have a gun. I can start tomorrow.
The Bolingbrook PD's calm, reliable go-to guy was now prone to emotional outbursts at work.
I have to fix this, and until I fix this, I cannot do anything else.
And at home, he'd withdraw into a dark bedroom, staring blankly at the ceiling for hours on end.
He had 40,000 things going on in his head, just spinning like the fan blades.
Nothing seemed to really help. The cop, who always seemed to have such a charmed life, was secretly making plans to end it.
My world was dark, and I was going to make everything dark around me.
Just sobbing, pleading with him. What are you doing?
A panicked Jenny Prochut made a call for help on April 17, 2008. And when police arrived, Chris's fellow officers insisted he be hospitalized. The decision may have saved his life, but it ultimately ended his career.
If I go to this hospital, I lose my gun. I lose my gun. I lose my job.
State law mandates that anyone admitted to a mental hospital loses their right to carry or own a firearm.
I remember crying that day going, I don't belong here. I send people here. I have failed at my life. I failed at my job.
Yet Chris Prochut is hardly alone. A study of law enforcement deaths nationwide last year found that while 44 officers died in the line of duty, 141 committed suicide.
When an officer gets to the point where they're in crisis, it's now too late. In too many cases.
Hanover Park Police Sergeant Andy Johnson helped create a mental illness awareness and suicide prevention program for his department. He's presented it to officers throughout the nation. Still, he says some law enforcers want nothing to do with it.
The ultimate fear is looking weak, being perceived as weak, and there's a fear that that our jobs will be taken from us if we express those concerns.
Who is that?
Only after Chris Prochut was hospitalized did 4 different doctors determine he was actually suffering from bipolar disorder.
And you're just charged up, and then you can crash down and be depressed again. Generally, you can function like anybody else and do what you were doing before as long as you stay on your treatment.
Doctors who diagnosed Chris say he too is now mentally fit to return to police work. Yet the state police board has denied his appeal, citing his hospitalization as the sole reason why.
Being a police officer, you're always there to help. It was very difficult for me to ask for help.
And as a result, Chris Prochut is unemployed, unable to collect disability benefits, and he's now filed for bankruptcy.
It's really your identity. I've lost who I am.
The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission tells Fox Chicago just because Chris Prochut lost his right to carry a firearm, that doesn't preclude him from working for the police department in a civilian capacity or perhaps transferring to another city job. We left messages for Bolingbrook officials asking about this, but none of our calls have been returned. Now, we put an extensive list of mental health services, many designed specifically for police and law enforcers, on the special report page of myfoxchicago.com.